welcome to Films According to Chris Wyatt, my blog and YouTube channel dedicated to all things film. Now, if you caught my show last week, I shared my top 10 choices for the worst films from 2013. So today, these are my top 10 favorite films from the year 2013. Now, as I mentioned before, I don't really have a set criteria or formula for how I critique films or how I made these 10 choices, but basically these are just the 10 films from 2013 that I liked the most. So without further ado, here they are.
Number 10. Rush.
Rush is the latest film from Ron Howard. It's a biopic and sports film based on the true story of James Hunt and Niki Lauda, two Formula One race car drivers who had a really fierce rivalry. For one, the race scenes are just phenomenally well done. The editing is impeccable, the cinematography is brilliant, they're fast-paced, they're exciting. They're some of the most thrilling scenes I've seen from all year. But what really, I think, pushes us up to the top 10 list was the two lead actors. You have Chris Hemsworth as James Hunt, who gives a pretty likable performance, even though he's certainly no saint, but he's the fun-loving guy who is very dedicated to his craft, to his sport, but likes to have a good time too. And then you have Daniel Bruhl as Niki Lauda, and by the way, Daniel Bruhl is really good in this film. Like, I am actually shocked he didn't get an Oscar nomination. I think what makes it work, aside from just the great rivalry between Lauda and Hunt, is the fact that both actors are able to instill their characters with a sense of humanity and heart, and that's really what makes this film click. Had it not been for these two actors, it probably wouldn't have been as good. But you've got great direction from Ron Howard, and like I said, the action scenes, the race scenes are just phenomenal. And when you have two great actors, it all comes together. It was a story worth telling, and even though it does indulge in one too many Hollywood cliches, those are minor issues. Overall, Rush is an extremely well-made film, and my choice for the top 10 for the 10th film of 2013.
Right now, with zero incentive, why would I drive fast?
Because I'm asking you to.
Number 9. Frozen.
Now, Frozen marks yet another worthy entry into the Disney animated canon. I don't think it's quite their best film ever. I mean, Beauty and the Beast is my favorite out of the Disney animated films, non-Pixar anyways, and yeah, that's going to be a hard one to beat. But this one is pretty dang close. I like the fact that the writers actually thought of an interesting direction to take the overdone Disney princess formula. It has some decent twists along the way, and the fact that it does kind of play with the whole cliche of love at first sight. Yeah, I really liked the character of Elsa, who was voiced by Idina Menzel. She was probably one of the most interesting characters of the year. I like the fact that you didn't really know right away if she was going to be a villain or going to come back to her senses or not, but overall I just thought she was an interesting character, and with perfect vocals from both singing and just voice acting from Idina Menzel. She's one of the most interesting characters of the year. But on top of that, you also have some just top-notch animation, some clever songs. I think the song Let It Go is one of the best songs of the year to be featured in a movie. And yeah, when you have a good script and some creative characters, well-done songs, and great animation, yeah, Frozen is one of the best films of the year.
The cold never bothered me anyway.
Number 8. Inside Llewyn Davis.
Now, here's an interesting film. It took me a little while to truly appreciate this film. When I first saw it, I liked it, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't one that I truly appreciated until a few weeks went by and I just thought back and was like, oh, you know, that was actually a really good movie. And to explain why is a little tricky. It's a Coen Brothers film, so already that's a good sign. And a lot of what makes their films good is present here. You've got some quirky characters, some low-key, dry humor, and yeah, just an overall clever script. It's well shot, well edited, has some really catchy songs. It's funny, it's touching, it's moving, it's dramatic, it's got all those. It's overall just a great film.
Number 7. Gravity.
Now, Gravity probably wins the award for the most exciting and thrilling film of the year. It has a really interesting concept that's a very simple one too. Sandra Bullock plays this astronaut who's lost in space and trying to get back home. It has some of the most exciting action scenes of the year. Alfonso Cuarón is one of the most creative action directors. Incredible special effects, beautiful cinematography, and just an overall keen sense of timing and editing. And the fact that he got an incredible performance out of Sandra Bullock, and I am not a Sandra Bullock fan at all, but I'm genuinely shocked about how good she is in this film. But yeah, basically, I think Gravity is just, in terms of pure excitement and thrills, probably the most exciting film of the whole year.
Do you copy?
Yes, I copy. I'm
Give me your
detached.
position.
I don't know. I'm spinning. I can't.
Report your position.
GPS is down. I can't.
Number 6. Captain Phillips.
Now, here's a film that I had pretty high expectations for, and I can say that it met pretty much all of them. It wasn't quite my favorite film of the year, but basically everything I was hoping to see in it, I got. For one, Tom Hanks is phenomenal in the main part, but he's Tom Hanks. That's really no surprise. He's just that good. The real surprise was the casting of first-time actor Barkhad Abdi as the Somali pirate who invades this cargo ship captained by Tom Hanks' character, Captain Phillips. He is quite a find. He is an incredible talent, and the way he plays his character both as threatening but also with some depth and some complexities make him one of the most engaging characters and one of the best performances of the year. I'm not a huge fan of Paul Greengrass's direction. I'll be honest, the Bourne films were okay, but some of his directorial choices never really jived with me. But this time I think his style is put to good use. The way it employs both the kind of documentary style and the shaky cam stuff usually doesn't work for me, but this time it all works. It has a very raw edge, and the way it basically feels almost documentary-like and down to earth. It was a really believable film. And for once, like I said, that style, not usually a huge fan of it, but this time I think it really contributed to a lot of the film's most suspenseful and engaging elements. So yeah, basically like I said, Captain Phillips, it's incredibly well acted, it's suspenseful, and it's just an incredible film to watch.
Look at me. Sure. Look at me. I'm the captain now.
Number 5. 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, this was not an easy film to watch, we'll say that much. If not the best film of the year, it's probably the most difficult film to sit through. It's intense, brutal, and quite an eye-opening experience. It's one of the best, possibly even the best film to ever depict the topic of slavery. It's directed by Steve McQueen, who finally got some well-deserved Oscar recognition, and stars Chiwetel Ejiofor, Michael Fassbender, Lupita Nyong'o, and a few others, all of whom are just incredible in their respective roles. Based on the true story of a man named Solomon Northup, who is a free black man living in the northern United States in the early to mid-1800s, I can't remember the exact year, who gets kidnapped and sold into slavery in the Deep South, and for the next 12 years of his life is just forced into this life of slavery. And yeah, it's incredibly brutal to watch. There's some of the most painful and just heartbreaking scenes you'll ever see, but it's probably one of the more important films to see, and certainly one of the most well-made. It's got a great story, some incredible direction from Steve McQueen, and like I said, the cast is just across the board excellent. Definitely a film worth seeing if you can stomach some really, really intense moments.
Solar rising.
Well, I don't want to survive.
For the year when
I want to live.
Number 4. Her.
Now, Her is the latest film from Spike Jonze, and if you're not familiar with him, he is one of the most creative filmmakers working today, at least in terms of his ideas. I mean, this is a guy who did films like Adaptation and Being John Malkovich, and yeah, Her is very Spike Jonze-ish, if that makes any sense. It's got a clever story, this time about a man played by Joaquin Phoenix, who's lonely and kind of depressed, who installs a operating system, or an artificially intelligent operating system, who turns out to have a female voice, and it's named Samantha. And the more he interacts with Samantha, the more he starts to like her. They become friends and eventually fall in love, and he starts this relationship between him and his computer, essentially, or his operating system anyways. I think in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, this premise could have gone south really, really quickly, but Spike Jonze is talented enough of a writer and director to make it work. The two leads are fantastic, though Scarlett Johansson as Samantha is excellent, and it's even more impressive when you consider that the whole film, she's not even seen on screen, it's all entirely voiceover. On top of that, you've got some excellent production design. I love the soundtrack, and it's just a clever story. It's a cute, charming, and touching story. It has some interesting things to say about love, relationships, and how we view technology today as a society. And yeah, overall, you know, I enjoyed it. Not much more I can say.
What's it like to be alive in that room right now?
I wish I could put my arms around you. Wish I could touch you.
Number 3. Fruitvale Station.
Now, consider this the best film from 2013 that nobody saw. It kind of snuck into theaters, flew under the radar. It got some film festival buzz, but very few people actually went and saw the thing when it did make its theatrical run. Myself included, unfortunately. I missed it during then, but I did catch it after it finished its theatrical run, and I'm really glad I did because it's an incredibly well-made and moving film. It tells the true story of Oscar Grant, a young man who was shot and killed by a transit police officer back in 2008 in a Bay Area BART station. It's not just the film is good, but it's also one of the most important films you'll see this year. For one, because what happened with Oscar was not an isolated incident. These things have happened before, and worst of all, they just keep on happening, and this needs to stop. And I think where this film's greatest strength is in the humanizing of its main character, Oscar Grant. The film itself is basically a day in the life, or what might have happened on the last day in Oscar's life. And the main actor, Michael B. Jordan, is phenomenal in the lead role. What really does well is how it humanizes its main character. Michael B. Jordan plays Oscar with a lot of personality and just this really likable presence. You see who he was. He had friends, he had family. Basically, he had a life, and it was stolen from him. And that is what makes it so heartbreaking and so tragic and so moving. Family and friends are all played by phenomenal actors. Octavia Spencer is the real standout in this film, next to Michael B. Jordan. She's fantastic. But overall, it's not always an easy film to watch, but it's definitely a moving and very heartbreaking film, and yeah, easily one of the best films of the year.
We're just trying to get home. What is going on?
Number 2. Nebraska.
Now, Nebraska is the latest offering from writer-director Alexander Payne, who also brought us films like The Descendants, Sideways, and About Schmidt. And much like those films, this is also a dramedy of sorts, I guess you would call it. A kind of an emotional and moving drama, but also a quirky comedy. In this case, you have an incredible cast, including Bruce Dern, who gives one of the most emotional and moving performances as this old man whose mind is starting to go and who believes he's won $1 million from a magazine company, and June Squibb as his long-suffering wife, who is just hysterical and just a complete hoot in this film. I'd probably say she gives the funniest performance from 2013. Also good work from Will Forte, who's probably best known for his work on SNL, who gives a surprisingly effective performance. It has some really moving and sometimes heartbreaking scenes, but it's always offset with some just genuinely touching and sweet scenes as well. And the comedy is some of the funniest I've seen this year. You've got a quirky cast of characters and some really funny one-liners. And like I said, just some really touching and moving scenes, not to mention some beautiful black and white cinematography. There's not much more I can say about Nebraska. It's a very sweet, touching, and moving film that's often very funny and very much a film worthy of Alexander Payne's very impressive filmography.
She was only 19 when she was killed in a car wreck near Wausau. What a whore.
Mom.
No, I liked Rose, but my God, she was a slut.
Alright, before I get to my number 1 choice, here are a few honorable mentions.
You can see all the stars as you walk down Hollywood Boulevard. Some that you recognize, some that you've hardly even heard of. People who worked and suffered and struggled for fame. Some who succeeded and some who suffered in vain.
And the best film from 2013 is The Wolf of Wall Street.
Now, after watching The Wolf of Wall Street, I'm becoming more and more convinced that Martin Scorsese might be the best living filmmaker still working today. It's 3 hours of complete madness. You have some of the most despicable and disgraceful and just disgusting characters you'll ever see committed to film, and just 3 hours of what's essentially two-bit crooks ripping off rich people and reaping the rewards. It's 3 hours of assholes with money. That's what Wolf of Wall Street is. Leonardo DiCaprio is excellent as the lead, Jordan Belmont, the man who starts this company and ultimately discovers the secret to being rich and mostly staying under the radar from the feds. But he's accompanied by a brilliant cast of side characters. Jonah Hill in particular is a standout in this. It's not a subtle film. I know I've praised a lot of the films on this list below for being subtle or low-key. No, not this time with The Wolf of Wall Street. It's both exciting and funny. It's very dark humor, don't get me wrong, but it's exciting, thrilling, and often really funny. I can't think of a film this year that I've been more impressed with than The Wolf of Wall Street. And that's why I have to make it my number one film.
Mm-hmm. 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 Come on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alright, thank you so much for watching my choices for the top 10 best films of 2013. If you want to see my choices for the top 10 worst films from 2013, I've got a link right there. Feel free to click that, and click subscribe if you want to see more videos. And if you're interested in checking out some of my written reviews, I have a link to my blog right below there. It's cwyattfilm.blogspot.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
You can see all the stars as you walk down Hollywood Boulevard. Some that you recognize, some that you've hardly even heard of. People who worked and suffered and struggled for fame. Some who succeeded and some who suffered in vain.